I thought that, even when it was introduced, it was done because of the fact that if you wanted to remonetize the economy after having purged the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, a 2,000 rupee note was simply the quickest way to put the money back into the economy. Asia is where the center of gravity, the economic center of gravity is shifting. And therefore, we can't really, afford to be not an integral part of some sort of trade grouping, larger trade grouping within there. Okay, so first off, what I would say is that we'll do ourselves really a big favor if we, first of all, lowered our own tariff barriers a good bit. We have not followed that strategy, as you all know. If anything, in recent years, we have done the opposite. We have raised our tariff barriers. In the latest budget, I think, perhaps one can see some bit of sign of rolling back just a little, but I'd like to see a bit more to be sure whether that is a directional change or that was something, some bit of rationalization. So that's the first point, that even when we are engaging in free trade agreements, if our own tariffs are lower, it is much better for us to be negotiating with that, because this reduces the prospects of trade diversion, meaning, switching from a less costly source to a more costly source, because we have, lowered the tariffs to that higher cost source as a part of an FTA. This is the classic kind of trade diversion problem that economists worry about. So the lower are our overall tariffs, the so-called multilateral tariffs, the less the chances of this kind of trade diversion. Also, in general, lower tariffs of our own means that we are open to imports, and hopefully we will, as a result, import more. But to import more, we got to export, because you got to pay for what you buy in foreign exchange, and that foreign exchange has to be earned. Because you can't count on running a larger current account deficit to pay for those exports, because to pay for those imports. So that's my point number one. Now, point number two is that even then, given the fact that, given where we are in terms of our own tariff protection, given some reluctance that I see, at least I'm glad we are going off to sign some FTAs. We have done with Australia, we have done with UAE. This is, I wholeheartedly kind of endorse that. And I think, the UK looks to me like it will happen, although somehow it has slowed down under the current leadership, particularly at the secretary level. It seems to me that the previous secretary was pursuing these with greater vigor. And that vigor seems to have come down or lost or what have you. So, but I hope that still that UK one gets done. European Union one, which is in a way the most important one, and that is actually, that is with a big FTA, because European Union we might think of as a single unit, but it actually consists of 27 countries. So that is really a big one, and that is also the most consequential one for us, because the one with the United States is way down in time. It's not going to happen that easily. But European Union is at least possible, and that is a large market. That is what would, given we are not liberalizing our own markets unilaterally. in the context of the European Union, we'll also see our own economy opening to a very large economy. So I think that if we pull through that, to me, would be the biggest, most important step. Then we can come to some of the others, because Asia is very important. We can talk about that. And RCEP, to me, is a bit of a problem because of the geopolitics. China sits in there. But there is the other one, which was the TPP originally, and then it became progressive and comprehensive or something. The acronym has changed. There are two more letters. It's
TPP is right at the end.
But Trans-Pacific Partnership is still there, and it's progressive and something. Progressive and comprehensive. I think trade agreement. That is the one we should then begin to look at. I think situation, from the 1990s has changed. And perhaps now we can be a bit more confident on issues of IP protection, labor standards issues also. It's at least worth looking at, simply because ultimately Asia is where the center of gravity, the economic center of gravity is shifting. And therefore, we can't really, afford to be not an integral part of some sort of trade grouping, larger trade grouping within there, or maybe strengthening our ties with ASEAN is very important. Something of that sort. We need to look at that because in 5 years' time, of the three largest economies of the world, two will be in Asia, and of the four largest, three will be in Asia, and so we do need to set up ourselves to be an integral part of that region. So that's my kind of overall view on the free trade agreements. Much is being made out of this announcement, but really it's not going to have a whole lot of impact. Some people who have a lot of 2,000 rupee notes may feel a little inconvenience that they have to make an extra trip to the bank to convert it into 500 rupee notes. But beyond that, this is only 10% or about 11% of the total currency in circulation right now, and whatever is withdrawn will be automatically converted into, so whatever is returned to the bank will be exchanged, or certainly will be exchangeable into another money. So either you get a deposit for it if you go and deposit that money into the bank, or you get a 500 rupee note, a set of 500 rupee notes in return. So the money supply, as we think of it, either the demand deposits or cash in circulation, M1, that's not going to change. And I think this is not an unexpected move, certainly not to me. I thought that, even when it was introduced, it was done because of the fact that if you wanted to remonetize the economy after having purged the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, a 2,000 rupee note was simply the quickest way to put the money back into the economy, which to me was largely the motivation. I mean, I don't know. I was not part of those discussions, but this seems to me to be the most obvious reason that 2,000 rupee note was a quick way to in value terms, put the liquidity back into the system. Now, beyond that, there is very limited rationale for a 2,000 rupee note to exist. And I don't think, some were speculating that, 1,000 rupee note will come back and all. I don't think we should do that either, personally. 500 rupees, I rarely have used 2,000 rupee note myself. Whenever I'm in India, 500 rupee notes is the maximum that I carry with me. I've talked to many friends and family who don't use it either. So it only serves largely to when large bundles have to be exchanged for illicit transactions, then it helps. So let's take it out, make it a little bit harder. I mean, it's not going to eliminate the black money, but let's make it a little harder for those, instead of one suitcase, they have to carry four. So I think I don't see it's going to have any major impact on, or almost any perceptible impact on the economy. It will hopefully encourage more people to transact digitally. An FTA is a two-way street. And if we seek access to the large European market, then we do have to give concessions. And what we need to understand is that most of the concessions are not to our detriment. In most cases, these are concessions that we are giving, which ultimately will make us more competitive. That's the whole idea, right? After all, when we started the trade liberalization in 1991, and kept knocking our tariffs down all the way up to 2007, and went from the highest tariff, which was 355% in pre-reform, down to 10% by 2007-8. Basically, we were doing it for ourselves. We saw it that this liberalization is good for us, and we actually took those actions unilaterally. At that time, we were not negotiating with like China at least was negotiating because it was wanting an entry. I'm talking China around 2000. It entered the WTO in 2001. And so it was actually negotiating even on its multilateral tariff with the United States, European Union, all the other WTO members, because it wanted the entry. So they had to satisfy all the members of the WTO. And so there was a negotiation. But we did it actually basically because we felt that this was good for us. So in most cases, when you are doing liberalization, it is good for you. You should use it for sure in a negotiation. You should present it as though you are giving a concession. That is how it is done. But we should remain cognizant of the fact that it is good for us. And it's the same thing, therefore, for data policy. We need to come up with something rational, and if something, if other countries, say European Union has certain policy, if they are comfortable with it, we should be able to be comfortable largely with something similar, not necessarily identical. So if there is will, I think it can be done, because we don't have, the real, look, what I'm saying is that we actually don't face a serious political problem with respect to European Union. With the United States, we do face a political problem, which is that United States agriculture is super competitive. And as a part of an FTA, we will need to open agriculture. And that, I think, politically, at this stage for us, is a very tough challenge, which is why I have hardly ever sort of said that let's start negotiating with the United States. We should do it, but perhaps that's a bit down the road. European Union, to me, looks to be much more feasible. The politics is very much going to be a part of that discussion. And I do not know which way the politics plays. So allow me to leave that aside, because politics may play one or the other way. In the current environment, I sort of suspect that there will be great hesitation on our part to go for such an FTA. But from an economic point of view as well, if you ask me today, if I am doing negotiations, is Russia my big priority? I would say no. Should it be on my list? Fine, we ought to have everybody on the list. Why not? But in terms of priority for negotiation, if it is a matter of investing our resources into both negotiating resources and research resources into FTAs. I would really like us to go and pull it off with UK first quickly, simply because it's already done 90%. And then move on, do with the European Union. That is the big one. Russia market for us is very small, actually, because as you know, the Russian, what was it, foreign minister or trade minister who was in India and was saying that in the context of rupee trade, that they export us a lot of oil now, but we don't export a whole lot to them. And that, of course, creates the kind of imbalance, and therefore rupee accounts cannot be cleared. So in effect, they end up having to hold a lot of rupees. So the sense I get, I have not looked at the data, but the sense I get is that our trade with Russia is not terribly large, except for the recent growth in oil imports. So that and even after free trade, suppose we were to have free trade with them, is there a large potential for future growth? I mean, you could say that, well, our bilateral trade may not be very much because we are imposing a lot of trade restrictions on each other. I haven't checked it, but in principle, let's say if that were the case, is there scope through liberalization for a lot of expansion of trade between the two countries? And it doesn't look to me like that is the case. So I think I'll, invest my energies in other or put my negotiating capital in other FTAs first. I mean, I personally really think that we do need to pay a lot of attention to Asia, because this is, come what may, Asia is going to be the center of gravity of the global economy. And we need to get going in that region. Also, the population, very large population, is located there. And if you think, in terms of employment implications, if we were to, for example, really be able to replace China in some of the labor-intensive products like apparel, we would generate an enormous amount of employment opportunities. This is a population. Just think about something like 5 to 6 billion population, and even if you think of 2 pairs of shirts and 2 pairs of trousers, you're talking about close to about 12 billion shirts and 12 billion trousers. Somebody is going to have to make them, and we ought to do that. This is just Asia, So this is the sense in which I think we have to put a greater priority on Asia. First of all, is it something feasible by 2070? I would say yes. If the Europeans and the Americans can do it, get to net zero by 2050, I think we can get to net zero by 2070. For the simple reason that, for these entities, the United States and European Union, to get there, and also, by the way, China is 2060. So China is also 10 years ahead of us. If these 3 entities can do what they say they want to do, it will require a lot of innovation in green energy area. And if that innovation is forthcoming, we would also be able to adopt that. And so 10 years after China, we can definitely get there. So that's my broad kind of point that given that there are these other countries which have committed to earlier dates, if they can deliver, we can deliver. Have we done good progress? I think so. On our Paris commitments, we actually had done our Paris commitments already to the fullest, and we are the only country actually that has delivered on their Paris commitments so early, 7 years in advance, and we have therefore bumped up our ambition already. So that again is something to feel optimistic about. The third point on this I want to say is that, look, I would ground a lot of our effort also into our own local environment cleanup. That is how we should really orient this, because at least, so 2070, we will get there. Paths we can choose. And I would rather choose a path in which we benefit more directly our own citizens, which means that focus on the cleaning up of our environment in the urban cities. I'd seen these numbers about, I think, 2018 or 19, so I haven't seen the updated numbers. But for that last year that I saw the numbers, out of top 10 most polluted cities, we had something like, eight or seven of the cities